If you can't connect to the music or you can't hear it, technique's not gonna help you. You need to come back up here. Because what an audience connects to most is right here. I can tell you that for sure. Okay, so the 4 elements of dance is basically a blueprint that I use for learning how to dance in terms of what is the most important thing that I should pay attention to the least important or most influential items that I should pay attention to in learning to dance. And of course, number 1, we have music. So the music at the most basic level is essentially when. It's the when of dancing. When should I do this move? When should I start? How can I dance along with this music? So the first thing that we learn is we learn how to count music. We learn different fundamentals of music for dancers so that we feel comfortable with music, and then we know when to go. From there, we can get more advanced with the music, interpreting it, giving it our own style, and also learning how to basically create a picture visually of what somebody's hearing or what we are hearing auditorially. So music is the most fundamental element of dance and the first thing that we connect to, that we pay attention to. So the second element that we have is the element of posture. Basically, what posture is for a dancer is how are my body parts in the trunk of my body mainly arranged in relationship to one another so that I can have the best control over my dancing. And by control, I do really mean at a fundamental level, balance. So posture for whatever style of dance I'm doing essentially means balance. How am I going to control my dancing through having balance? And usually that's done through figuring out how the different parts, like let's say the rib cage and the pelvis, how do they relate to each other? How am I holding those one on top of the next? And then from there, how do I hold that structure over the foot? Where is my weight in my foot for that particular style of dance? So for example, where my posture may be one thing for classical dance, for ballet, it's going to be something completely different if I'm a swing dancer, for example. And if I'm a Latin dancer who has to stand, on a high heel, my posture is going to differ from, let's say, if I'm doing a lot of hip hop or street dancing. So for posture, it's going to be present in every moment of our dancing. It's going to be there from the moment we walk on stage or we walk onto the floor, not even from when we start dancing. It's going to be there the moment we have to have presence in front of an audience. So posture is the first physical element, and it is the most important, and it will define what genre you are doing at a very fundamental physical level. All right, so now for the third element, we have character. And what that is essentially is all of the things that make that style what it is. And I think for most dancers, the word that we would associate with this is technique. And the technique of ballet, the technique of Latin dancing, the technique of tap dancing. It is what we have to learn to be able to give the dancing that stylization. So if we're learning the character of ballet, for example, we are learning how to do the slow sustained movements, how to do the big jumps, what is the correct way to do the multiple spins that we have to do. All of the things technically that make that style possible are what we're learning. If we are learning, for example, tap dancing, We are learning what we've got to do in our leg, in our ankle, in our foot to be able to make all of the different sounds that you're going to hear in tap. If we are learning Latin dance, we are learning how we're going to move our hips. What do we need to do in our legs to be able to do that? How do we move so quickly? What do we need to be able to do to be able to move that fast, for example? So contained within this are all the technical elements that you have to learn to be able to produce the character of whatever style dance you're doing. And I think for most dancers, they can relate quite strongly to this, because our pursuit often of increased ability, and trying to get better as dancers is often focused in the area of technique, and what we mean is the character of the dance. The only problem with that is that often when we come to learn to dance, these two items of the elements of dancing are kind of either completely overlooked, or number one is completely skipped, and number two is just kind of glossed over, and we are jumping straight to the rest of the elements. And so the things that have the biggest impact and the most influence on your quality as a dancer are not being given the most importance, and they should be. Okay, so now we come to the fourth element, which is steps. Now, in terms of steps, what they are, some people call them moves, some people call them patterns, but it's basically, what do your feet do? Do they go forward? Do they go back? What are all the different types of moves that you could do to be able to express the character or the technique of whatever style of dance that you are learning? So in terms of impact on quality, the quality of your dancing, steps aren't really going to have much of an impact. If you watch a beginner do a very fundamental step, and then you watch a professional do that same fundamental step, are they going to look very different? Yes, they are. Why is that? Because the training and the ability of the first three elements is very different in the beginner than it is in the professional. So as far as impact and influence on the quality of your dancing, steps, moves, they don't have a lot of impact. They just give you more ways to express the technique, more ways to express whatever it is you're trying to get across artistically. And that is why they are the fourth element. Okay, so there we have the four elements of dance ranked in order from the most influential and important to the least influential and important. Now, you may be saying at this point, great, okay, I understand what they are now, but Rebecca, how in the heck do I use this thing? Essentially, the way you use it is this. You start up here at the top and you ask yourself, can I count music? Do I know what a beat is? Am I absolutely sure every single time that I can connect to any piece of music that's given to me immediately? From there, can I interpret music? Can I bring out the most strong elements in a piece of music in my dancing? Am I what they call musical? This element is going to affect the way people perceive your dancing more than any other. So understanding that and assessing where you're at is going to be very, very important, instrumental in how people perceive your dancing. Now, if you are having, for example, control issues physically, you are off balance a lot, you're falling out of turns, you're not able to control where you step, when you step, as well as you'd like, you know that the problem isn't here. And I think a lot of people think that the problem is here in the technique. No, the problem is in number two, your posture. That is going to affect your control and your balance. So when you're having problems in that area, you know it's not here in character, it's here in your posture. And you can basically say, okay, I'm having challenges there. I need to approach an instructor to ask more questions. about how to hold my body, about what I do with my body parts while I'm in the spin or while I'm in that particular move. And of course, here I think we're more familiar, right? Understanding like how to do the technique. There are a lot of instructors out there who teach technique and the character of dancing, and they teach it very well. But we have to make sure that we don't confuse problems that we're having technically with problems that we're having here and here. All right, the last one, steps, moves. Basically, of course, we have to have them. They give context to the dancing. We can't just stand still and be dancing. So it's important to know the steps, to know their names, to memorize them, but they're really only going to have impact on your dancing once the first 3 items are being done to a little bit more consistent, a little bit higher level. So you're going to get more juice out of steps and moves when you've got more ability with music, more musicality, when you've got your posture consistent and down so that you have control, and when you've got the technical aspects of whatever style you've learned more under your belt. So for steps, again, we have to have them. I'm not knocking them. You've got to have them, but they're going to have more impact and basically give you more versatility once you've got the first 3. And that is how you use the 4 elements of dance. Thank you for learning with me today. If you feel you got value out of today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you next time.